Hey everyone, my name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at some pro-revenge stories, so sit back, relax and enjoy. Caught manager stealing and got a hefty raise. This happened a few years ago. When I was 16, I got my first job working for a franchise-owned pizza place. I worked there until I was 24. When I was 19, I received the shift leader position and got a 0.30 raise. Our store was pretty slow and we only had a handful of employees there, so I understood. One day, the franchise owner comes in when I'm running my shift to tell me I would be getting a new manager. The franchise owner gave me his personal number and said if I needed anything to call him if the new manager had any problems. So the next day, I'm working my 10 AM to 12 AM shift and the new manager comes in. We'll call him Stan. We talk a little more and he asks why there isn't an assistant manager. I let him know we probably don't make enough to pay an assistant manager. He said he would worry about that and he left. I jumped to the conclusion that he was going to make me the assistant. Wrong. I closed that night and had to come in at about 4 PM the next day. When I did, Stan was there with a girl I've never seen before, wearing one of our uniforms. He said it was his roommate Wendy. She had never worked for a pizza place before, but she had just lost her job. He hired her as the assistant manager and completely changed my schedule and severely cut my hours. Oh, and guess who had to train her? Yep. Before Stan and Wendy, I worked 10 AM to 12 AM 4 days a week, then 4 to close on 2 other days. Now I just had 4 PM to 12 AM 5 days a week, no more overtime. That severely hurt me financially, but I sucked it up. This place was pretty much in my backyard and I loved my job before all this mess. The next couple of weeks are okay, except we are coming up short every night that I close. Usually no more than $10, but that's a lot. And it was coming back on me because I'm the one who does the nightly inventory, paperwork and deposits. I brought the shortage problem to Stan and he told me if it kept happening, he would start taking it from my check. I had never stolen a penny from this place, and I felt pretty attacked. He says he wasn't accusing me, just letting me know what he would have to do. I said fine. Every day from now on, when I close, I want to do a shift change. A shift change is basically counting down the drawers, which would help figure out where the shortages are coming from. He agrees. The very next day, I go in at 4 and start clocking in and all that fun stuff before Wendy leaves. I look at the order screen for the day to see how well we did for lunch, money-wise, and I notice something. It said at 12 a customer, just happened to be one of my regulars, called and ordered 10 pizzas for pickup. It said the order was cancelled. They had never cancelled before, so I was concerned. Quick side note, I feel like I was being more of a manager than both of mine put together. By the way, I was in the back office counting the drawers. Wendy was covering the front. I pick up the phone and call the customer from earlier. I didn't ask why he cancelled. I asked how his experience was today since we had a new manager. He said it was fine, except she needed to learn how to work the credit card machine. Apparently, she told him she could only take cash. He said he left, went to the ATM, and came back and paid $80 in cash for the pizzas. He said other than that, everything was fine. I asked to confirm, and he said he most definitely didn't cancel. So here's one possibility. The credit card machine did go down and she could only accept cash, so she cancelled the order in the computer until he came back and paid. And she just forgot to ring it up again. That would be harmless. Instead, I think she's stealing. I knew if I went to Stan, he wouldn't do anything about it. So I call our franchise owner, Eric. I ask his opinion and he said he thinks I'm right. So he tells me what to do. First, I wasn't allowed to say a word about it to Stan or Wendy. He said let Wendy leave and finish out the day as usual. He said if she's not stealing, you will come up 80 over at the end of the night. If she's stealing, we should break even. I finished counting. We were $1 short. Side note again, if this is hard to follow, I'm so sorry. The next day is when the magic happens. I go in at 4 as usual. Wendy is there waiting for Stan to pick her up. Then Eric walks in. He tells her to follow her to the office and tells me to send Stan back when he gets here. Stan comes in and asks why Eric is there. I shrug and tell him he's wanted in the office. Maybe 20 minutes later, Stan walks out, brushes past me and gets in his car. Wendy comes out next and tells me she hopes I'm happy. Eric hadn't come out of the office yet, so I went back there to talk to him. He said in 3 weeks they stole over 1,000 between them and he wouldn't have ever known if it wasn't for me. He then says, "Oh, you're the new assistant manager. I'm going to give you 13 an hour and we will consider more after a preliminary period." 13 an hour? I was making $8.50 before this. I stayed a few more years after this and left to do the mum thing. I actually miss it sometimes. Wendy and Stan Facebook stalked me for a couple months after. It was pretty hilarious. They stole over 1,000 in 3 weeks, that's a lot. And when Wendy came up to them and said, "I hope you're happy," I guarantee Eric didn't mention who ratted them out, so she knew she was being watched. Bully me mercilessly for being hard of hearing in a room full of people after I paid to be here? Have fun getting fired and evicted at the same time. Okay, so I'm not the type to ask for impossible stuff or to demand ridiculous accommodations. And don't get me wrong, I'm usually very polite to service workers, but I will straight up go full witch mode when I don't get what I'm paying for, and when workers are being purposely dismissive or rude. I do this weird sort of stern middle-aged mother witchy thing when I'm being dismissed at customer service. Or when I have to deal with my boyfriend's bank, which will put him on hold for like 4 hours and treat him like absolute horse poop until I get on the phone and suddenly they're all, "Yes ma'am, no ma'am, certainly ma'am, we can fix that right away ma'am." But there is exactly one instance when I have gone full Karen, entirely out of necessity. So when I was 16, I paid over $150 for an all-day pass to get into a theme park event in my city that I go to every year. That's a lot of money to me, even now, but it's a huge deal and it's tradition. Problem is, the park is super loud and I'm hard of hearing, auditory processing disorder and a little deaf. So I have a hard time understanding what people are saying. The best way I can describe it is it's sort of like trying to hear somebody talk to you while you're underwater. If also while you were underwater, there was a swarm of bees loudly buzzing around your head. This theme park is owned by a multi-billion-dollar company that pretty much runs the city, and they are widely known for being huge jerks who just care about money. But the park is tradition and everybody goes. Seriously, don't feel bad for them. They're terrible. My point is the media in my city is literally scrambling for a takedown story of this company. We were in the thick of it in the ride section where things are noisiest, and I can't make out a freaking thing. I'm walking into one of my favorite rides with my boyfriend, which takes place in an enclosed room, but you can still hear all the noise from outside. That I have gone on every year since I was like 6 years old, and the rules have changed as to where to put your bags. This is fine, if a little overkill, but I'm glad it's safer now. There are no signs signifying the rule change, so they are relying on you understanding the guy talking who doesn't sign. That's a big no-no for the deaf or hard of hearing people, but with a little extra effort from the person trying to talk to you, you can get the gist of what's being said just fine. This 35-year-old man then decides to openly mock me, calling me very rude names for putting my bags where I've been putting them for the past decade. This whole thing lasts like 15 whole minutes, no exaggeration. He's going as far as to make other riders boo and clap at me as I desperately try to figure out what's going on. I was confused and scared. My boyfriend, who can hear perfectly, was with me at the time, is trying to explain to me what this man wants, but even he can't understand because the instructions are so confusing and he's purposely being cryptic to drag this out. The door is closed and he won't let anybody leave until the ride was over, even when I was banging on the door trying to get out. I was literally crying at one point as people laughed at me, right up until I started signing and they realized I literally cannot understand. Straight silence across the ride as nobody wants to get involved. Ride operator guy doesn't care, even when my boyfriend is telling him I can't hear him, and tell to him clearly what he wants me to do so he can sign it to me. After that 15 minutes was up, finally some random citizen waves to get my attention and plays charades with me for 30 seconds before I 100% understood what was being asked of me and did it. To which this ride operator scoffs at this guy like he's ticked in his Diet Coke and starts to slow clap, while literally refusing to start the ride until everybody awkwardly slow claps with him. At this point, everybody just wants this to be over and humors this guy while I'm still crying. The ride started and the entire time it was dead silent except for me sobbing. It was bad. People apologized to me outside and told me they were sorry for playing along and that they wished they'd had been the one to help me. Whatever. Anyway, I freaking ruined that guy's life over the course of the next hour. It was like World War II at the customer service kiosk, which was near the entrance where it was quieter. I didn't need an interpreter, so I sent my boyfriend away to enjoy his day since mine was already shot. It was a hard sell. He was very protective after that whole fiasco, while I committed first-degree murder, not literally. The customer service lady tried to give me a voucher for half-price $30 ice cream and told me the guy was new and was just trying to do his job and that I should calm down. Oh, I did not pay $150 every year for a decade to be bullied for being legally deaf by some guy you brought on a week ago. I want your manager's manager on the phone right now, or so help me God. I made like 15 calls. I threatened a class action lawsuit. I literally called a family friend who is a lawyer right there at the customer service to show I was serious. I was pretty reasonable with anybody who wasn't acting like a Class A idiot, called my local deaf and hard of hearing advocacy group. And the kicker? I called like 6 separate news channels. They were very interested in my story. This guy's boss came down to do damage control to tell me he was going to put the guy on suspension until the theme park moved to the next city in a couple days. Not good enough. Who's your boss? I was out for blood. Once I'd reached literally as far up as I could go, some lady had to drive in from across the city to deal with me. The ride people's manager and the customer service people's manager were full-blown arguing about what to do as I began practicing what I was going to tell the news people when I got home. Apparently, they would have had to close the ride for like 4 hours while they got the other guy who could operate it in from some event he was at. Maybe a wedding? I don't know, I wasn't listening. I didn't care. Then I said something along the lines of, "It's not my fault you hired a discriminatory egghead who likes to pick on deaf teenage girls. I want him fired, and I want this on record somewhere. I want consequences, and I want my freaking ticket comped before I talk to a highly respected state newspaper. They both turned to me at once, and it was like two owl bobbleheads looking at me. You're a miner? That man's butt was grass right then and there, and I was the freaking lawnmower. He had sown the wind, and I was the whirlwind. There was no saving him. Not only did they comp my ticket, they also gave both my boyfriend and I VIP passes, and bought me lunch from any food station in the theme park. Turns out the guy was actually living with the traveling theme park for the summer, sort of like a 21st century circus, but with running water, in a park-owned trailer as they traveled across the country. I was unaware of this, but I'll be honest, it wasn't an unwelcome surprise. A security guard, at my insistence, led me to the edge of the closed-off trailer area where I watched him pack his stuff into a backpack and a box, leaving what he couldn't carry, presumably to be picked up later or thrown out, before he was led by two separate security guards out the back. Basically evicted and fired in one solid punch. I don't know where he went, but I highly doubt he had a place to crash in the city. The park then, hilariously, called my 50-year-old redneck dad to ask if the punishment and compensation for me was to his satisfaction, and if he would be pressing charges or speaking to anybody about this incident. They meant the news. And basically he just said, "Yeah, that's fine. What direction did he go in?" What a goof. They would not tell him. Eventually, he got me on the phone and asked if I wanted to press charges against the park or if I would want to speak to anybody. No, I'm alright. I'd like a comped lunch for my boyfriend who was with me when it happened though, if that's alright. That way we can eat together. My dad laughed and told them what I wanted, and that was that. They had me sign some paperwork that basically prohibited me from talking to the news or posting about it on social media. And a customer service dude went, found my boyfriend, and led him to where I was waiting with two VIP lanyards and eating. I'd already ordered. OP, what did you do? I ordered us a bloomin' onion, a plate of deep-fried pickles, a plate of deep-fried Oreos because I know you wanted to try them. Also, we have 2 VIP tickets now and another $150 to spend. Oh, and 2 sodas. We are still dating and go to the theme park every year. Nobody has bothered me about my hearing since. I would definitely not describe OP as a Karen because that was totally justified. The one thing that really annoys me though is the other people on the ride who joined in. I think they're just as worse as the guy. Obviously that guy is a jerk and he got what he deserved, but no one else got anything bad for it and they're just as bad in my opinion. Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to see more videos like it, then click on screen right now. And if you never want to miss out on a video, then hit subscribe, but I will see you all very soon.